everybody. We are reading The Rhino in Right Field. We are on to chapter 9. Let's go. Chapter 9. I looked over towards Ace's front porch, but he was gone. So I ran next door and leaned on the buzzer. When the door opened, an invisible cloud of fried liver and onions hit me in the face. I forced myself not to stagger backward. Nick! It was Ace's ma in a flowery housecoat. Her hair was done up in curlers, and anyone who looked at her could tell her where Ace got his ears. Is something wrong, dear? You're all out of breath. I shut my mouth and shook my head. The more I talked, the more liver and onion I got up my nose. I suppose you're looking for our Horace, said Ace's ma. I thought I heard him come in a minute ago. That's when Ace came barreling past her out the door and kept going. See you later, Ma, he called over his shoulder. Nick invited me for supper. He clattered down the porch steps and cut across the lawn to my house. Oh, said Ace's ma, isn't that nice of you, Nick? Tell your family hello for me, will you? Your mother was so kind to weed our front lawn the other day. Not a dandelion in sight anymore. Sure thing, Mrs. P. I escaped down the steps and followed Ace to my front porch. When did I invite you for supper? I asked him. Please, said Ace, plopping down onto the top step. Did you catch a whiff of what's going on over at my house? Hey, look! He pulled the torn newspaper page out of his back pocket and unfolded it. We can fill him out tonight. I sank down next to him. Did you read the whole thing? He frowned and studied the page. Field Skills Contest, Saturday, May 22nd. That's swell. That means we'll have plenty of time. Wait a minute. Saturday? I groaned. Now what am I going to do? My pop will never let me off work. My own newspaper sat on the porch like a dead fish. I gave it a half-hearted kick. Couldn't you at least ask? Said Ace. He almost let you play ball last Saturday. Maybe once he knows what a big deal it is? I shook my head. I don't know. Pop always says the only thing more important than work is school. Then tell him there's a field trip maybe. What kind of field trip is on Saturday? Ace shrugged. A trip to the state capitol or something. All the way to Madison? Not even my folks would buy a story like that. I scuffed at a weed sprouting through a crack in the walk. You better figure something out, said Ace. It wouldn't be any fun without you. Besides, if you don't do the contest, Pete will say it's 'cause you're scared of him. Pete doesn't scare me. Don't tell him that. He'll try to change your mind in a hurry. Oh, hi, said a voice. There, on the sidewalk, on a bicycle that was too big for her, was that girl. The tall girl with all the hair who almost threw my brand new baseball into the storm sewer. Do you live here? She said. No, I told her. We're just hanging around till somebody offers to adopt us. Because I was still pretty sore about the baseball incident. You're Nick, right? And Ace? I squinted at her. How did you know that? She shrugged like it was the obvious. I've seen you around school. I'm Penny Longerin. I live 2 blocks away. We moved here from Kenosha during Easter vacation. My dad got a job at the brewery. I'm exploring the neighborhood. Nice catch, by the way. Now she was talking to Ace, of course. Thanks, said Ace, sitting up straighter. Nice throw. He grinned like a fool. Thanks, she said. She blew a bubble. Where'd you learn to throw like that anyways? I said. My sister, said the girl with a completely straight face. She pointed at the torn newspaper page in Ace's hand. What do you got there? And without even being invited, she dropped her bike onto the sidewalk, sauntered up my front walk, and sat herself down on the porch step right next to me and Ace. She leaned over and peeked at the page. A contest? You guys gonna enter? Maybe, I said, as if it were any of her business anyways. You bet we're gonna enter, said Ace, as one of us is gonna win, too. Did you know a kid named Pete? Said Penny. I heard him say that he was gonna win some kind of contest. Is that so? Said Ace. He seemed pretty sure about it. There's something you should know about Pete, I told her. Oh, I've met him. On my first day of school, he told me that the new kids have to give him the cookies out of their lunch bag. That stinks, I told her, even though I was still sore at her. It's all right, she said with a shrug. It only happened once. I guess he didn't like a wag of chewed bubblegum stuck between two fig Newtons. She grinned and blew a bubble. Well, I gotta get home. See you around. And then she sauntered back to her bike and rode away down the street. How do you like that? Said Ace, watching her go. A girl who's not afraid to stand up to Pete. She doesn't know Pete like we do, I said. Nobody does something that to Pete and gets away with it. The screen door squeaked open behind us. Nikki, you're home. Hiya, Ma. Supper's ready, she said. Oh, hello, AZ. Hiya, Mrs. S. Can I stay for supper? She cocked an eyebrow at Ace. You like fasaluda? Ace leaned up towards me and whispered, Do I? Bean soup, I told him. Ace thought about it for a second. Then he said to Ma, It's my favorite. Good boy, said Ma. Come wash up. And she disappeared into the house again. I looked over at Ace. Do you like bean soup? Never had it, he admitted, but anything is better than liver and onions. Chapter 10. Answer me, Spyro! Pop was hollering as we walked into the kitchen. He shook a finger and glared at my uncle, who was younger, taller version of Pop. How will you make something of yourself if you sleep every day until 3 o'clock? Uncle Spyro waved him off. I'll be fine, George. Don't worry about me. Imagine that half of this conversation is being hollered in Greek. That's the way things go at my house. But to make it easier, I've translated it into English. Everybody sit down, commanded Ma. She was even smaller than Pop, but her voice was bigger. Nikki, bring the milk from the icebox, eh? I grabbed the milk bottle from the fridge and set it on the table. Something sure smells good, Mrs. S., said Ace, as if he didn't hear all the hollering. Ma and Pa are always hollering. They're not mad, usually. It's just that their volume is stuck on loud. To them, nothing is worth talking about if you can't argue about it. The weather, it's so hot today, Pop might say. Then Mom goes, Hot? Are you crazy? It was hotter yesterday. When Spyro's around, Pop hollers at him instead of Ma. I figure that's why she hasn't kicked Spyro out of the house yet. Nobody hollers at me much, as long as they have each other to holler at. That's fine by me. Uncle Spyro sat down and shook out his napkin. Well, if it isn't good old Ace. I haven't seen you since you were a little squirt. Gee whiz, Spyro, said Ace with his goofy grin. You see me all the time. Oh, right, said Spyro. That means you're still a little squirt. Ace nodded agreeably as he pulled up an extra chair. Nobody but Uncle Spyro could get away with teasing Ace like that. Hiya, though, I said to my uncle, pouring milk for me and Ace. What's shakin', Nico? Spyro rubbed my crew cut. Ma pushed between us with a bowl of hot soup. Eat, she ordered, and went back to the stove to fill more bowls from her gigantic pot. Finally, she untied her apron, wiped her red face with it, and sat down with the rest of us. We'd barely lifted our spoon when Pop started again. When you gonna get a job? I decided to make my move on the chance that Pop was too busy hollering at Spyro to notice himself giving me the day off next Saturday. I brought the paper inside for you, Pop. Did you know that sometimes there's contests announced in the paper? Ace gave me an encouraging nod as he stirred his soup. Is that so? Said Uncle Spyro, seeing his chance to change the subject. Say, does your buddy Charlie still have that morning paper route? Only on the weekends, I said. Yeah, said Ace. On school days, he needs his beauty sleep. Why do you sleep till 3 o'clock every day? Demanded Pop. Uncle Spyro blew on his spoon. I told you, George, he said patiently. I have night school. He slurped his soup. Delicious, Athena. You should open a restaurant. Ma beamed. You are 25 years old, said Pop. Too old for school. You have a good job waiting for you in the shop. But I want to go to school, said Uncle Spyro. He never hollers. It drives Pop bonkers. And the GI Bill is paying for it. So like I said, you don't have to worry. Pass the bread, please. I slid the bread plate across to Spyro, who gave me a wink. Pop jabbed his spoon into his soup. He finally took a bite. His scowl melted into his usual contented grin. The best soup in the world, Athena. He leaned over and kissed Ma on the cheek. Ma blushed with pride. That's funny. No matter how much my family hollers at each other, they never argue about food. What kind of school is this anyways, that you come home so late every night? Spyro didn't answer. You just dipped a chunk of bread into a soup. You need to learn useful things, said Pop, shaking his spoon. Uncle Spyro tore off another chunk of bread. What's useful, George? Blocking hats? Shining shoes? What if I want something different? I knew how he felt. I tried again. Could I have the day off from the shop next Saturday, Pop, for the contest at the ballpark? But he was glaring at Uncle Spyro. The shop is not good enough for you? It's good enough to pay for this food you eat, for the roof you sleep under? It's good enough for me. Good enough for Nicky. Why not for you? A mouthful of scalding soup caught in my throat. My eyes watered from the heat as I gulped it down. Ace pushed a glass of milk towards me. Don't bring Nicky into this, said Spyro, and I took a grateful swallow of cold milk. Nicky's just a kid. He doesn't know what he wants. The milk went down wrong. I sputtered into my napkin. Ma dropped her spoon with the clatter and started smacking me on the back. I waved it off. Pop, I hollered, I need the day off work next Saturday. But here's what happens when you're part of a family that hollers all the time. When you start hollering, nobody notices. I'm older than you, Spyro, said Pop. The veins in his forehead were sticking out. I already make something of myself. I know about the world. The world, said Spyro, his voice finally raising too. You grew up in a tiny village with no running water and more goats than people. He lifted his chin. I've seen plenty of the world. I was in the war. I was in the front lines in France. Pop threw his napkin onto the table. You were a cook! I was still there, said Uncle Spyro. His voice was low and level again, but it could have sliced an iron. The two brothers glared at each other, jaws clenched, nostrils flaring. Ace lifted his bowl and smacked his lips. Could I please have some more soup? All right, we'll catch you next time.